Home staging is marketing, not decorating. So if you're selling your home, here's how to choose a good home stager. Today we're talking with Roku from STS Home Staging, Denver Highlands. Thanks for being here, Roku.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Of course. So today we're talking about how to choose a good home stager. And if you like this content, then definitely like, follow, and subscribe. So let's jump in. I think firstly, it's good to just kind of set the stage for everyone and talk just a second about what is home staging? Why would a seller want to do it?
Absolutely. Home staging is a profession where we set your home up for the best sale by making it inviting and appeal to buyers in a mass way to help you get a faster sale for a higher dollar amount.
Definitely. Yeah. Sell it faster for more money. That's the pitch for home staging for sure. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna touch on several things that sellers or homeowners who are sellers should be looking for if they're trying to choose a stager. So yeah, just kick us off. What are some things that they should be looking for?
Absolutely. You should be looking for a professional who has experience in home staging for a sale. There's a buyer psychology that a proper stager will be talking about in addition to the aesthetics and design. They should have knowledge of the local market expectations and how to meet the target buyer audience for that particular property, neighborhood, and price point.
You know what's such a great example of that expertise that you're looking for? I remember when I talked with you, we had come out of the COVID years of this extreme seller's market where our, average days on market was like 3, right? And so home stagers were pretty regularly, offering these packages that were 4 weeks. And when I had talked to you, our market was shifting a little bit. Homes were on the market longer. And one of the things that you said to me was that because homes were sitting on the market longer, you were now doing your packages for a flat rate that was 8 weeks instead of 4.
Yeah, our price point didn't change, but we shifted to 8 weeks because that's just what we feel like is the right thing to do. We want sellers to get through the offers and the average days on market right now, through appraisal and inspection, and confident before we pull anything out so they can get to closing without that extra worry. So having a full 8 weeks accomplishes that in the majority of cases.
Yeah, that's perfect. Let's see, what else should they be looking for? I like this idea. It's a new idea to me about this idea that home staging is marketing, not interior design.
Right. Yeah, it's a very different craft. Marketing something as a product, that's what we're doing here. We're not designing it for funsies or comfort. This is work. This is to get a job done and do it the best for our client as possible. And so you have to have an expertise in the product and how that moves on the market.
Whenever I'm thinking about hiring somebody, whether it's a home stager or anyone else, you're getting ready to do business with this person. And so maybe you could touch on a little bit, what kinds of things you might look for in a home stager as far as like their business processes.
Sure. Yeah. There are some standard questions that I will recommend asking. Firstly, what kind of staging do they do? There are varying kinds, and you need to find someone who is an expert in your fit, whether it's vacant staging, occupied staging, partial staging, etc. And then ask the kind of packages that they offer, everything that it includes, what those price points are, and what other options they offer and what those cost, the terms of the contract. We just mentioned the 8 weeks that my company offers, and that can make a big difference in your total cost if you're looking at renewals in only a month. And then also what your payment options are.
Do you allow, what are the payment options? Now that you've mentioned that, I'm curious about it because I thought that staging was something that you kind of had to pay for up front. So you guys offer other payment options?
Yeah, so our company offers 8-week contracts, and it is 50% of the price up front and 50% at the end. And the portion at the end, we offer a pay at closing option. So you don't have to be out of pocket before you hit that closing date. We'll pull everything out of the home prior to that, but you still have that extra time. The money just gets paid straight from title. It doesn't.
That's nice.
Doesn't quite hit so hard.
Yeah, that's a great option.
You get paid before you pay for that half of it.
So you mentioned this idea of there being different types of stagers or different types of stagings, maybe. Do you want to drill in on that a little bit more just to kind of explain to our viewers, what they would be looking for so that they know where to target their search?
Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely stagers who specialize in these areas. So knowing which one to ask for is crucial. And your realtor should be able to help you with some of this. If you're living in your home while it's for sale, you'll want an occupied staging or a listing consultation, depending on your home and your exact needs. If you're moving out of the home and then it's going to be listed, you need a vacant home stage. They're very different crafts. And some stagers, for example, we do the pre-listing consultation and we do vacant home staging, but we don't do partial staging. So we wouldn't bring a chair. We make everything work with what we have. There are stagers when it's really that's what the need is that will bring in half of the furniture when there's only half of it there. It's a little less common situation, but it can occur. And so those are the three main types.
Yeah, I could definitely see that partial staging being a need. So it's good to know that there are home stagers who fit all three of those needs.
Yeah.
But it's important for sellers to know that there are those differences, because that was actually something I learned after I got into the business. I had no idea.
Well, that's fair. Why would you know? And that's where we come in to help the sellers understand these things that they wouldn't need to know otherwise. That's not their industry.
Right.
They have their own expertise in their own areas. So we're here to fill in that gap.
So what are some questions that you think homeowners should be asking as they're interviewing stagers?
I think it's really just a matter of paying attention to what your stager is talking about. If they're more interested in the creative design aspect and they're having fun and they're talking about bold accents or a certain style they're going to do, that's more of a creative, interior design side of things. For a stager, you want to pick up on the things that indicate they're a professional at marketing a property. So talking about buyer psychology, they'll explain why the flow of a room should work this way or not that way. They'll give you advice on clearing countertops, but they'll explain why. And they understand that appeal, that thinking, and can help you understand it as well. And really partner with you on shifting your mindset to selling a property.
Well, and in my job as a realtor, I often describe part of my job as project management, and that we're bringing in a lot of people from different professions to accomplish this big goal, whether it's buying or selling. And on the selling side, when we bring in anyone, well, not just on the selling side, but just when we're talking to different professionals, one of the things that I always advise people to do is to ask about insurance and get a certificate of insurance. Is that something that you run up against very often, or not really?
Not at all.
Never?
I don't know how that would play together. What is a certificate of insurance?
Like insurance for your business to be in somebody else's home.
Oh, so like us having business insurance.
Your business insurance, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I've never been asked about that.
Nobody's ever asked
And
you
you
for
have
a copy of
coverage
it?
for everything? No.
Yeah, because
That was totally left field for me.
that's why these live episodes are so fun.
Yeah, that's why we don't do live, right?
Oh my gosh.
How funny. No, I've never come across that question.
Oh yeah, and the reason that I started advising people about this is because there was a professional who was in one of my listings and had fallen, and they were okay, but it just got me thinking. And I was like, oh, and I had asked the person, like, after they fell, I asked, do you have business insurance? Like, if something happened to you while you were in this property, do you have insurance to cover that? Because if they don't, what's the other thing that they're going to have to do? They're going to go to the homeowner and want to file a claim on their homeowner's insurance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've started kind of setting that up with my clients. Like, we're bringing in a lot of different people from different places. And as we bring people in, whether you're using my recommendations or if you are, going Googling or somebody, it's my recommendation that you ask to see their certificate of insurance because you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want something to happen while they're on your property and then all of a sudden have some insurance claim on your homeowner's insurance as you're trying to get ready to move.
Yeah, it's important who you do business with. That's a really good point. Yeah, so it's totally fair to ask for those certificates of insurance to make sure that they're a proper company who does know what they're doing as far as the operation of this process and can really be a partner.
For sure. And checking the Secretary of State website, to see if their business comes up, checking reviews. Reviews are full of information. Better Business Bureau, sometimes, it's not like a must have for me, but because not everybody's on it, but
Especially smaller businesses. Yeah.
exactly. But, definitely whenever you're trying to choose anyone for a job, it's sort of this due diligence is on you to kind of check them out. Tell me more about what happens if the home doesn't sell right away. What does the seller have as options for their staging package if we're coming up to the end of their 4 weeks or their 8 weeks and it's not under contract? What are their options?
They can choose to renew if they'd like, and it's at a discounted rate, and that should be disclosed up front. Always make sure you know what the renewal rate would be if that were to come to pass. And again, we give 8 weeks, so hopefully you never have to think about that. Most contracts that I'm aware of are 30 days.
Yeah, once we go under contract to closing is typically 30 days. And if you're going to fall out of contract, it usually happens during the inspection period. So what you were saying about making sure to have it staged kind of through the inspection period, and then you kind of get to this point where we're just waiting for the loan to get clear to close.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a good time to probably pull things out.
Yes, that's the right time to do it. And you don't want to have to stress about forking out more money for that extra month if you didn't need it. And it's also brings up a good point about the inspections. Inspectors are humans. They're actually impacted by the staging as well. It's easier for buyers as well as inspectors to look past little details that they might get nitpicky on if it's staged. It just distracts us from those things.
Oh,
They'll still find things that have to be found. They'll do their checklist. It doesn't mean they're not going to do their job, but they're not going to get nitpicky the same way they would if it's empty and everything's right in their face.
Interesting. I've not heard that before.
I've had inspectors confirm that for me as well. Not trying to speak for them, but I have had some say that, yeah, well, I notice how pretty it is. I feel good when I go in there too.
Feels like a good house.
And I thought that was a great point. I love that that a couple of them were telling me that.
That is so funny. I never thought about that before either.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you are human too.
They definitely are. Oh my goodness. Yes, we all are. We all are human. Mistakes will be made. Oh, you know what else I was thinking about? This idea of like people need to understand that when you're bringing furniture and items and decor into a home, I think that you're often scheduling with movers, with actual movers to come in and move all this stuff in and out. And so what is the time frame that someone needs to decide before when they're coming up to their renewal, right? Like how much time do they have about, to decide whether or not they're going to renew because you need time to schedule the movers?
That's a great question. And I would definitely just stay in communication with your stager. Depending on the time of year and the market, it may be easier or more difficult to schedule those movers in advance versus short notice. I would offer typically a week in advance if you can decide by then. That's the most kind time frame.
Okay.
But we understand it's, hey, at that week mark, the inspection is tomorrow. Okay, we'll wait till tomorrow. Hey, the inspector did their thing, but they haven't gotten us the report. Okay, we can give it another day. And we also work really closely with our movers. And we tell them, hey, we have a soft schedule. Like we might need you Monday. And they keep that in mind. So it's just sort of communication is key. And whenever stay in contact. We'll reach out.
So I'm curious about this mover thing. I have more questions about the movers. Are you basically just hiring a moving company? Like I could go to, I almost said Yellow Pages. Like I could go Google movers and like maybe you're using one of those companies. Or do you have movers who are more like in-house to the staging company?
I've done both, and you'll find both with different stagers.
Okay.
And some stagers actually do the moving themselves too. I find that exhausting. But also I can't be trusted. I will ding things up. So I hire professionals.
Again, a reason for insurance.
Yes, for sure. And I always vet them very, very well because of course it's going to reflect on my business. So it's very important to work with high caliber movers. And we vet them really well. We try things out on a scale, like at our local facility. We'll move stuff around with them. So I've done both, hired companies. And then I also have a couple people I've brought in-house. And so we'll do moves there. And really it's that the opportunity came up to have some of these movers we'd worked with in the past come in-house. And so we definitely took them up on that.
You saw an opportunity and you just grabbed it.
Yeah, they approached us and it was like, we would love to bring this in-house and take better care of them. They take better care of us. And so that makes it a lot more, they're bought in more to the success of the stage and caring for these properties. And if anything were to happen, of course, we have business insurance, as you mentioned, totally fair to ask for a copy of that from your stager. They are bringing large items in and out of the house and things can happen. They need to be able to cover it. But yeah, we have in-house movers right now. And it's a lot more fun because we're a whole team.
It's a team. Yeah, it creates more of a team environment if you have the movers in-house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do worry sometimes about a stager moving themselves because they're not professional movers. And their items, the homes, things will kind of show that sometimes. So just ask questions. Maybe they're great, but I would just ask about that.
Oh, here's another question. I'm coming up with some of these questions on the fly just because I'm curious.
I love it.
Okay, so I have seen in some homes that are staged, you will find where they have put like an air mattress instead of a regular mattress. Oh, I'm starting to tell what you think about this with your... And then they put the comforter over the top and it looks fine. It looks like a bed. And sometimes they'll even put a little note on the bed that says like, don't sit here. This is not a real bed. But okay, so
that's so distracting and that drives me nuts. No, I have standards that will not ever, it hurts me when I see that. I want the buyers to come in and sit down on the bed. I'm not going to leave a sign because that's very distracting, but my gosh, I hope they feel welcome to and that they do. And they just like, it's a home. They don't think twice about it. They shouldn't have to tiptoe.
Oh, I love this idea that you would love for them to sit on the bed or the furniture because we often are not doing that type of stuff when we're showing homes. And I would never encourage buyers to do that. And in fact, if I see them do that, I kind of like cringe on the inside a little bit. But so that's interesting to know that like if you can tell the house is staged, that you should be kind of safe to go ahead and sit on the furniture and try it out and kind of make yourself feel like, does this feel like I'm at home?
That's where my standard is. You will find air mattresses and there are plenty of horror stories I've heard of. We went to see this house. It had been staged, but the bed deflated and no one knew until we told them.
Yeah.
Right in front of our buyers. And it was like totally a topic of conversation. We were just talking about that and how funny it was and whatever. And then there we go again. We're not talking about the house anymore.
Yes, it goes right back to what we were saying about you do not want buyers to be distracted by anything that's in the house. And that's part of hiring a professional stager is that they are going to make the house look and feel like buyers are at home with no other distractions.
Yeah. And if they choose to interact with the staging, it should be fine. They shouldn't run into surprises. I heard one story about someone who took their buyers to a home. They sat on the bed and they collapsed in the empty boxes that were holding it up. It was just boxes stacked up with a comforter on top. I'm like, didn't it look kind of square? And they're like, yeah, it was kind of weird. But then, yeah, they totally fell on their butt.
Well, and I would say that there's probably a lot of people that don't even know that home staging is a thing or that it's a profession. So if they're out looking at houses, they would not even be aware that that might be a thing.
That's a fair point. Yeah. So the mattresses are a big thing, but also I've seen instead of a dresser, it's a bookshelf on its side. That hurts me. End tables for nightstands hurts me. Just these cut corners, and the design should be thought out. It should be the marketing plan, the target buyer, the goal of the stage, and then we get to have our fun with the creative aspect of it. Design the whole thing with real furnishings for a real house, for a real sale, and have that kind of standard. And I would love for it to become something you don't think twice about taking your buyer somewhere. I wish you could always encourage them to sit down.
So we've kind of already started traveling down this little path of red flags, because we're talking about how to choose a good home stager. And so part of that conversation is like what kind of red flags to look out for. So I guess at this point, I would definitely say, ask the stager, do they use real mattresses or do they use air mattresses?
Yeah.
But what else? What are some other red flags that we should be looking out for?
I think a clear process needs to be laid out. They need to know how they work and be able to walk you through it. They're the expert. They should be, instead of you. So if it's vague or if their pricing is vague, that's something that I would think twice about. Their lack of collaboration with the listing agent, because they're part of a team, as you mentioned. All these different pieces are pulled together. And that's the beauty of having a realtor be that point of contact. They can coordinate and orchestrate all of those things. They need to be a team player and be part of the team and not just like, oh, I do my thing. I don't want to, and try and dictate some of that. They should be flexible and part of that. And also they need to have experience with staging homes that have sold. And they need to be able to speak to their success there and, show some experience there.
You're basically, for a home stager, it's not necessarily before and after pics that you're after, more just the after pics. Like
Yes.
you want to see pictures. And, when I'm looking at stagers, a lot of stagers I think are kind of like on Instagram at this point, or maybe they have a website, but there should be somewhere. I guess if they're really old school, maybe they have a portfolio, but there should be somewhere that you can go look at their work.
Yeah.
Just
You get a feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get a feel for them from their portfolio, which is oftentimes Instagram or the like, and, you scroll posts. So yes, they should have something like that they can show you. And you should not see overly trendy, leaned into one particular style of home that doesn't appeal to everyone.
Well, and how do we know that? Like, how do we know that this is appealing to everyone? Because, so when I'm looking at pictures that are for different stagers, and you can kind of see that they have different types of styles, right? But how would I, as a non-stager, know that, oh, they did a good job making this home appeal to the most amount of buyers? Like, is there anything that I could look for?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Honestly, we're informed of things like that by magazines that are also mass appeal, and certain styles stand out. Actually, looking at short-term rental sites like Airbnbs, that's a great place to go see overly styled places, and that there's a place for that on that marketplace. So something Art Deco, all these bold colors everywhere, something incredibly mid-mod. Now that can be appropriate if the home is mid-mod, and that means it's a good stager. So look at the home itself and then the area that it's in, and the staging should lean that way, but not go so far that you have to like that in order to dig it.
Okay, so we've been talking about how to choose a good stager, and you've been giving us lots of great tips. Thank you. I guess another question is, at what point should the staging conversation or decision, maybe the conversation and the decision, at what point should that be happening in the process of listing?
That's a great question. So it should be part of the conversation right up front with your realtor. At the same time you're talking about, you walk through the house and talk about, okay, there's a broken cabinet, let's fix that. That's on our list of to do. Whether or not you're going to paint, clean carpets, do some landscaping, etc. Staging is just part of that initial marketing plan. And so that's when you decide what you're going to do. And then you start engaging with stagers to select the right one, get scheduling, etc. figured out and make sure it all lines up. So where it will go in the order of things is after any other alterations to the home, and it's been professionally cleaned from all of that. The staging will come in next, followed immediately by the photographer, and then the listing can get out there and live. We want staging to happen as close to listing as possible, or close to having it out on the market as possible, like the coming soon, so that your clock doesn't start earlier than it needs to.
Yeah, this is good to keep in mind if you're a seller, because there are things that need to happen in the process of listing that I think a lot of times sellers are kind of like, oh, well, I want it to go active next week. I've had sellers tell me, I want it active last week, and so for me, not only do I need about 5 days or so between getting pictures back and going active or going coming soon, whichever that is. So now you're backing up from there. So we got 5 days there. And so then you need to have your staging done before the photographer gets there. And the photographer has to be scheduled just like the movers have to be scheduled. And maybe this is a good time to say, don't be surprised if we schedule these things and for whatever reason that a seller has that they need to reschedule, there may be a charge for rescheduling.
Yeah. There are a lot of moving pieces and a lot of parties lining up here. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you do that? Do you guys have a charge for rescheduling or canceling at the last minute?
Only at the last minute. If we come to the day before, it's potentially a fee. If it causes us a fee, movers oftentimes will charge a fee for late cancellation. But also I have a team to look out for it as well, and I'm running a business. So it's in our contracts very clearly when you would be subject to a fee, and I waive it if I possibly can. If it just works out and it's like, hey, this is not a big deal, then we don't charge a fee. I don't want to.
Right.
But day of, it definitely kicks in because it has a direct impact on my whole operation as well as my mover's operation, and just sort of a domino effect.
Well, it just makes sense, but it sometimes needs to be said, right?
Sure.
Because, you're working with a bunch of professionals who oftentimes are small business owners. That includes my photographer too. And we are holding our time to do a certain job. And when you take that time off the market for another client and then you need to move it around, you're costing money and it's impacting the bottom line, like you said.
And really the risk back to the seller for waiting too long to reschedule is they may not have, they being myself, the photographer, the cleaners, these contractors may not have the ability to reschedule for a couple weeks. So you may have to start from scratch, finding someone else to fill that spot. Or they're all like, okay, well, you got a whole week to wait now. I'm booked. So you're pushing out, maybe not you're pushing out farther maybe than you want to.
Or to your point, if you now need to try to find someone different in a shorter amount of time, then the people who are available tomorrow are probably not as high quality. I mean, not always. You can't make that flat assumption. But, it's more likely that they're not as quality in their profession if they're not booked up and booked out.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. It's like the restaurant thing. You want to go to a restaurant where it's all booked up and busy.
Yeah. Yeah. It says something about the quality.
It does. Let's see. Did we miss anything? We've been talking about how to choose a good home stager. I think we covered everything.
I think we did.
Okay. So today we've been talking with Roku from STS Home Staging, Denver Highlands. And I just am going to mention too, there are other STS home stagings, but if you want Roku, because she's awesome, you want to get the Denver Highlands STS home staging.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
And Roku's somebody that I've worked with before. We have great experience. You guys do a great job.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here. And one more time, if you like this content, please follow, like, and subscribe.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you like this content and want to support the channel, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go.